Hi, my name is Robert May, and I am a Juilliard-trained singer, artist, and vocal coach, and this is the How to Learn a Song series. Today we're going to be talking about how to use your notebook for practice. Practicing isn't always literally vocalizing. If you practice and only sing for the entire time for an hour, you're going to wreck your voice. So you want to make sure that you have different sections in your practicing. Sometimes you're going to be vocalizing, sometimes you'll be doing a lot of thinking work about how you want it to sound, and sometimes you'll be really working on your acting. I think after talking with a lot of friends about how they practice, I think the universal understanding is that it has to have a lot of sections. My goal for you in this video is that you would be able to bring together the music and the acting into one singular expression. You don't need to do these strategies in the order that I'm presenting. I think that if there's a strategy that works for you, please feel free to use it. And if not, just leave it in the video. It's totally fine. I think on a basic level, though, I think when we're starting to learn a song, we often start from a place of feeling very stuck when we sing it, very stiff, very kind of blank-eyed when we start singing. And that's not what we want. We want to be able to sing the song like it's our own story. And so I think the first thing that you can do to get unstuck is by just doing something. So jumping jacks, running around the room, walking around the room, whatever, rolling around the walls, just anything that gets you unstuck. And if you feel like you're still kind of holding your body like this the whole time, then you need to do a little bit more. Getting unstuck and doing these like huge motions is going to help you stop being so self-conscious and analyzing what you're doing, and it's going to distract you and get you much more in the moment. Also, you have all these various versions of the song that you've made. You've made this phrase-by-phrase translation, word-by-word, unpoetic. Try singing those on top of the melody of the song. This can be really helpful to really knit the song together with your life story. So, for example, if you have the song Caro mio ben, it's Caro mio ben, credimi almen, dear my beloved, believe me at least. You can sing those words on top. Now, they're not going to fit very well together, but try singing one of your translations on top of the words. Another thing you can do is paraphrase. So I like to do on-site paraphrasing of the song. So in the example of Caro mio ben, I might say, honey, will you just believe me? And already I'm much more committed because I'm coming up with that, on the spot. And I'll do that while I'm singing the melody, and I'll do that on the melody line, and I'll, do the melody as written. One of the most helpful things I learned in college with acting is that if you're feeling stuck, to do really exaggerated acting decisions. So if your character is mad, you need to be storming around the room as you're practicing. If your character is sad, you can lean against the wall and just kind of twist your body against the wall like you're just, in utter agony from whatever you're going through. If you're happy, skip around the room. Do really big, exaggerated motions, and then later you can rein them in once you feel much more comfortable with the song and, once it's just generally settling into your system. Some singers enjoy practicing acting as though they're watching the scene unfolding before them, as though they're watching a giant TV screen. I don't generally use that strategy, but some people really love that because it kind of takes them out of themselves and they become this observer of whatever they're looking at. When I'm learning a song, I like to have a really clear sense of the setting of the song. So, we talked a little bit about that in previous videos of, knowing the context and, having a backstory, etc. But even when I'm in a room, this is very silly, but I did a cover of Just Around the River Bend on my YouTube channel from the Disney movie Pocahontas. And when I was practicing that song, I was pretending to canoe. And I had a very clear picture in my mind that this way was one river and this way was the other. And that really helped me when I actually sang it because I was kind of just playing make-believe as I was singing it. It's important for the sake of your vocal longevity during practice to alternate between full-out singing and marking and speaking. You can also mouth the words, but make sure that you're practicing, you're giving yourself vocal breaks. Okay, this is my own personal experience, but I'm just going to impart this to you and maybe you'll agree. There are some things that don't work on stage. So if I feel like I'm teaching someone something from the stage, so like I'm singing a song, like I have this information that you don't know, and I'm going to teach it to you, I generally think that that looks pretty bad. Because even if I were a character who had all this information, I think it's much more powerful for songs to be more of a reflection and an exploration of whatever topic it is, and to include the audience in that, as opposed to me just kind of telling you my thoughts. Another thing that does not look good is trying to look cute on stage. So whether that's, kind of squinting your eyes, or drama for the sake of drama, or cliche gestures, make sure that things are really rooted in truth and rooted in humility. And I think if you feel like you're looking cute on stage, that's probably not a good idea. At this point in the process, I want to talk about memorization. For some of you, this might be kind of late in the process to be thinking about memorization, but the thing is, you've spent so much time thinking about this song that it's also possible that it's memorized at this point anyway. But if the song isn't memorized by this point, when you're practicing, try not to use your notebook as much as possible. Put it away when you're actually acting and singing. And then if you forget a word, just go back to the notebook and make sure that you don't do it again. Other tips are going through the music before you go to bed and when you wake up in the morning. I know for me, especially when I have larger programs, I try to think of the first line of every major section of songs, because then at least I'm entering into the right words, and if I need an extra second to think of the next line, I've bought myself that time. It's a really great idea also at this point with memorization to start practicing it with a live pianist if that's within budget. A live pianist is going to add an element of performance to what you're doing. And, you might feel a little nervous, and it just changes the energy to have someone else in the room with you. So I would definitely recommend that if you can. Also, a pianist can yell out words that you miss while you're singing the song. Okay, this is a big question that singers often have, which is, what do I do with my hands when I sing? Because sometimes if we're just standing on the stage, and especially in a classical context, you're not going to have a microphone. You're not going to have any sort of prop. It's just going to be you. My first answer is to say that it actually really depends on the context. If you're singing opera or musical theater, the sky's the limit. The movement should look natural, but you can really walk around the stage and you can really gesture. If you're singing art song, the tradition is that your hands should be by your side and you should do nothing with your hands. That tradition is definitely changing. I think it's becoming more and more acceptable to do simple motions with your hands if you're singing art song. And if you're singing pop or jazz, I think it really depends on your individual style. But, we want to look natural and comfortable. And in order to find that natural, comfortable body language with our hands, I think it's really good to do a lot of paraphrasing work. If you paraphrase the song, and I mean like on-site paraphrasing, you are making it up and just riffing with your words on the meaning of the song, you're going to find what your body naturally wants to do. When I demonstrated Caro Mio Ben a second ago, my hands naturally went here. I wasn't thinking about that. But, if I were working on how to gesture naturally, I'd devote like 20% of my brain energy to just paying attention to how my body naturally wants to move. A helpful tip that I've heard in college about what to do with your hands is that, if your hands are by your side, it's kind of hard to gesture from that position. If you're gesturing out, your hands actually have quite a long distance to go. If you start with your hands relaxed and around your belly button region, and you just kind of hold them there and have them ready to go when you want to gesture, it can look a lot more natural. I think at the end of the day, it's much more about the internal connection that you have with a song than the literal choreography of your hands. If you're really connected to the song, your body is going to naturally move in a way that you might not be able to predict, but that probably actually will look good. As you continue to rehearse the song over and over again, you might find that your hands do basically the same thing every time. I don't think that's a bad thing, as long as it's coming from a place of you really understanding what the song is about. Okay, this is one of the most important things that I can tell you in this whole series about how to learn a song. You need to film yourself. You need to take your phone, or I guess a literal camera if you still have one, and set that thing up, point it to you, and film yourself singing. You're going to discover so much about what's working and what's not. You're going to see blank stares, and you're going to see really weird motions that you're making that you didn't know you were making. You're going to see weird facial things that you're doing as you're singing. Taping yourself is going to show you everything, and it's going to give you an opportunity to change that before you actually perform it. I think you should film yourself as early and as often as you possibly can. Filming is also helpful because you learn your angles. So I don't mean this really in a modeling sense where it's like the angles that you look best at, but more that if I'm performing for my audience, and I'm trying to look up, that's too far. I cut off my audience. You can't see my face. So if I'm looking up here. If I'm looking down, I'm looking down here. Left, right. If I go farther than that, then I cut off my audience. Now, sometimes that's okay if you're in opera musical theater and you have complicated blocking. But if it's just you on stage, especially in pop or art song, be really conscious to make sure that your audience stays with you and that they can see your face and your gestures really clearly. A camera is going to help you do that. You might discover that you have an inaccurate self-perception of what looks good with the camera. I'm always surprised what ends up looking really great and what ends up not looking great. And I think it's just, the more you do it, the more you're conscious of what actually is communicating on stage. But you should start from the place of you probably don't know, so use the camera to find out how your actions are actually registering to an audience. If you're still struggling with how to present the song on stage, it can be really helpful to see a coach. Maybe specifically a dramatic coach, especially if you're in opera or musical theater. But I think an acting coach could actually be really helpful, even for a pop singer or someone who just is in commercial music, but feels kind of awkward on stage. That you might receive some more tips that are not even in this video. Finally, and as always, if you have any tips for how to bring singing and acting together as one, and any tips for how to use the notebook, please put them in the comments below, and I will see you next time where we will talk about how to perform. I look forward to seeing you then.